ate it with the panties on. Yes, I want it.
When I think about my money and how much I've spent, how quickly I spent it, and where it all went, sometimes I regret it, sometimes I don't care. If my wife knew the value of my collection, I'd need to be in your prayers. Some men like to gamble, some men like to race, some men like to party, to drink and fall on their face. But I've been collecting knives since the time before MySpace. Some are fixed blades and I have many that fold. Some go down in value, but some appreciate like gold. There's a feeling inside, a hole in my soul. If there isn't a new knife on its way to my home, order a full custom, get on a wait list. Could be a year or 3, but it's worth buying to me because of the skill of the artist. And some factory knives that you didn't know existed are rare and special, being made so limited. You think that I'm nuts and call me a hoarder or whatever, man. At least I've got something special on pre-order. Spend all your money, keep buying more. Don't think about other things the cash could be used for. Why waste it on vacations, a temporary getaway? What else do you need the money for? Some useless gadgets, not even made by hand. If you run out of money, just start an OnlyFans. There's a feeling inside, a hole in my soul. If there isn't a new knife on its way to my home, order a full custom, get on a wait list. Could be a year or 3, but it's worth buying to me because of the skill of the artist. And some factory knives that you didn't know existed are rare and special, being made so limited. You think that I'm nuts, they call me a hoarder. To hell with it, man, I've got a Shiro Gorov on pre-order. On pre-order.
Sit your ass down. You are going to want to be sitting for this. This is one of the most exciting Ketuos that I've ever had the chance to bring out to you. But it's going to be in a similar vein to the Shadow and to a couple of others that I've had the opportunity to review in the past year or two. But what you're about to see takes that idea and just goes off into the future with it. It's more refined. It's better on every level. I'm so excited about this. This is a crazy, crazy ass knife. This is the MechaX. Inside of the box will be your cleaning cloth, microfiber, and a new booklet that I've never seen them offer before. So you have all of the specs that you really need to know right here. I like this. Kind of looks laser cut. And then you have the design draft here on the back. Pretty darn cool. And there she is. Oh. Now, what do I mean by that similar vein? First off, very sleek, hardwareless, futuristic looking design, very GTC type of design that looks like an integral, but it's not an integral. This is one of the clamshell integrals. But, and you watched the last one that I did, you watched me struggle to get that open because of how tight the tolerances were. With this one, not the case. All I've got to do is unlock it, lift, and it slides apart. No banging on the table. No doing nothing insane or crazy. And I wanted to get that out of the way first because I think for a lot of people, That is going to be the make it or break it proposition for this knife. Because maybe you've looked at some of these clamshell integrals and went, I love this completely hardwareless look. I think it's super slick. It's super cool. But when I see these reviewers trying to take them apart and they struggle with it and they have to bang it against the table, I don't know that I want it anymore. Now, I still have mine. I still dig them. I still think they're very, very cool. But I'm not going to take them apart very often. With this one, and I'm going to show you in a few minutes why this one is so much easier and so much different. But first, I just want you to get a nice eyeful of this knife and look at the beautiful spaceshipy design to it. The whole thing is insane. The machining on this knife is insane. Look how they have built the lanyard opening into the butt of the frame. Look at the way they have designed this machined titanium pocket clip. Look at the lock. That right there is your lock. It's a titanium arm with a steel insert. And it's built into this cutout. It's nutty. It's crazy. Now, like the previous couple in this series, it's got some geometric shaped thumb studs that I absolutely love. And these are the best shaped and best placed out of the recent series because I can very easily reverse flick it. I can push forward and flick it with my thumb. I can push it outward and flick it with my thumb. And that very low profile flipper tab, oh yeah, that works phenomenally as well. The action on this knife is typical Ketuo greatness. Just soak that in for a second. Look how beautiful that is. When I put the Tissot side by side with it, you'll notice that the MechaX is much more streamlined. Now, again, well, I love the shadow. The shadow's not really one that I ever carried a lot. I like it. I've most certainly carried it, but it didn't fall into that EDC type of rotation. The Tissot, on the other hand, this is made by Reich, and as you guys know, or should know from my reviews, that Ketuo and Reich are sister, well, let's call them brother companies, because that's actually a lot more accurate. I have carried this so much since I received it, and I am completely, madly in love with it. I love this knife in an almost unnatural way. But to take it apart, and again, this also has a locking mechanism on it, which I'm so glad these locks are on there now. Once you unlock it and you kind of pry it apart, you have to beat it to get it to separate. The difference here is the way they chose to execute this switch now. This switch isn't just simply allowing you access, but what it's doing, when it goes forward on its own, it's spring-loaded. When it goes forward, it's actually locking into this piece of hardware. You have to slide this to lock it in. It cannot come apart by itself in any way. But this is not a friction fit like this one is. This is very mechanical. It locks in that piece of hardware under that ledge. Very, very simple when you think about it. But look at how much engineering had to go into that to make it work. Tell me that wasn't a pain in the ass to design and then to machine out of titanium. And these guys put so much work into these knives, it's silly. And the little bit of seam that there is just looks like it's part of the design. While we're in nice and tight, you could see the micro milling that's done on this section here. The milled line, so you have milled slots with milled lines up here and down here. 3 milled slots back here with 3 more back here, which look like they could be just about the right size for some tritium tubes. I don't know. I'll test that theory later. Here is my favorite. If I had to pick one spot on this knife that is my favorite portion, it's this curve right here, this little ramp with the bevel on either side of it. Because if you look at this knife, let's pull it back just a hair, you see everything is very geometric. There's lots of sharp angles. There's lots of opposing bevels. And then all of a sudden you have this swoop, this very gentle swoop that's been chamfered with these bevels that create kind of this arrowhead look. I'm big on design sometimes. There are certain elements that I'll look at on a knife and just fall in love with that one element. Like on the Tissot, one of my favorite features on this whole knife is this scalloped area right here, both with how it looks and how it feels, and also with how it gives me easier access to that big thumb disc on there. And for me, on this knife, it's this part right here. It just adds an extra layer of beauty. So when you're looking at the knife here, it looks like a very high-end, very expensive titanium integral. Meanwhile, it is a titanium liner lock. This is a fully functioning knife, by the way, with the cover removed. You could use it all day long as a knife. I wouldn't, just because it'd be a lot easier for you to hit the edge of the blade. Now, it doesn't really protrude like the Tissot does. The Tissot, when you take that apart, the blade is rather proud of the backside of the frame. But you've got a fully functioning, I can't even really call it a liner lock. Is it more of a frame lock without an actual fully notched cutout? I don't know. I don't know how to describe that to you. But looking at that, that's another part that I find truly fascinating. The way that they have cut that lock bar, yet it is a solid piece. And then bolted to it, and you can see where the hardware goes in through there, is your steel insert. So you have a steel on steel lockup. They have literally thought of everything on this knife. And it comes together as a beautiful, cohesive design. Again, I love the integration of that very low profile flipper tab, which is not only low profile so that it looks good, but it works perfectly. I have yet to have my finger slip off of it, even though it's so tiny. The jimping on there is perfect. The angle on it is perfect. It just works great. You've got ceramic bearings in there, so of course it's going to be very smooth and very fast. And everything is titanium. Let's go through the materials very quickly, and not just the materials, but the specs overall. Let me lay that off to the side. You're looking at M390 for your blade steel. that's done in a really beautiful matte finish, which is done vapor blasted. Looks amazing. 3.696-inch blade length. Everything else on this entire knife is titanium. All 6AL4V titanium. Everything. The pocket clip, the frame, the clamshell, the cover, whatever you want to call it, the lock bar, everything is 6AL4V titanium. And your weight is 4.83 ounces. This looks like it's supposed to be a $3,000 or $4,000 custom. And speaking as someone who has spent that much money purchasing knives from people like Gus Zucchini, GTC Knives, which is very much the style that this falls into, that modern futuristic kind of looking like a spaceship kind of overall design. That's what you're going to spend. But with Ketuo, it's actually easily accessible. I really, really, really like this knife. And it takes a lot, because I'm a little bit more jaded, I think, than I used to be. It takes a lot for me to just go gaga over something, and particularly immediately. Sometimes it'll take me a while. I've got to warm up to something and get to know it before I go, wow, this thing is that incredible. But everything was executed beautifully. I can't see any tool marks anywhere on this knife as I take it apart, as I look at it. It's clean, smooth, beautiful, tight tolerances. Everything's aligned the way that it needs to be. It feels solid. I have one nitpick. There's something about this knife, and I've done this a bunch of times before I started the review. I'm like, is it loose somewhere? What am I feeling? When you're holding the knife and you flip it open, you kind of feel something shift or move, and you're like, what the hell is that? But what it is it's the lock. Watch. Let me do it lefty if I can. You see how it drops down. This is a surface that your fingers are resting on, and all of a sudden, part of that surface drops away, and it messes with your head for a second. You're like, what's going on? Is something loose? Is something wrong? No. It's just the lock doing what a frame lock always does on every frame lock knife, period. It's just that this is set in like a pocket, and we've never really felt that before. You know, even like here on the Tissot, it's a liner lock, so this is completely solid. You don't feel anything moving. So it's going to feel different even from that knife. It's very easy to access the lock. What they have done is they have notched away here and given you several milled lines on there so your thumb doesn't slide off of the lock. It's very easy to get to. You have no blade play in any direction. This thing is built like a friggin' rock. And it looks that awesome. This hump on here gives you fantastic ergonomics, and it drops the blade angle downward in your hand a little bit, so it's not, again, we'll go back and we'll compare it with the Tissot. So the Tissot, as you see, is very straight in my hand right now. Holding this in the same spot, it angles the blade just ever so slightly to the left, or in this position, it would be downward. And it feels natural. It feels really, really good. And I'll be honest, as much as I love my Tissot, it now makes me wish even harder that the Tissot had a flipper tab. Because now this knife, I can open any way I want to. In all of the ways that I enjoy opening my knives. The reverse flick, the underhand flick, whatever you choose to call it. The thumb flick, a slow roll, you can certainly do that. You do not have to flick it hard. Or hitting the flipper tab. Whatever you want to do, it does. Now, if you only like traditional styled knives, I can almost feel how scrunched up your face is from cringing. I get it. Modern designs like this kind of, again, spaceship look, isn't going to be for everybody. It is for me. I love it. It's not the same look that you see in every other damn knife out there. The way that shape feels in the hand is fan-friggin-tastic. The way that this blade cuts, and I've only done minor paper cutting, so forgive me, I haven't beaten this up and abused it. But for standard, normal, regular, just shredding shit up, dude, this is a slicey blade. I haven't measured the thickness. I have my calipers with me, so I might as well. I want to see what the blade stock is because they don't list it anywhere that I know of. So what's the blade stock on this? Ooh, they did something tricky here. Take a look at this. The way that they've cut or ground this swedge. Normally, you would go as far back here as you can to see how thick the blade stock is. But they actually got narrower back here. Then it fattens up here, and then it gets narrower again toward the tip. So that was a little bit tricky. I wasn't expecting that. All right. Get you back in inch mode. Where are we at? 124 thousandths of an inch thick. So that would explain the sliciness. They're starting off with relatively thin blade stock and getting super thin. What a great grind on this. I like this all the way around. Now, I've only had this for 2 days, so forgive me. I've carried it both days. I've enjoyed it, carried it in cargo shorts, goes in and out of the shorts. You'll fight it a little bit going in, just so that you know. There's a little bit of tension here, and they don't have a very long entry ramp set up on that clip. How does it look on the Tissot? Because the Tissot is easily pocketable. You see, that's got more of a ramp to it than this does. So you are kind of having to push a little bit to get past that. And then once it's in the pocket, it's nice and secure, and you're able to get it out pretty easily. You don't have to jerk on it and yank on it and do all kinds of crazy shit. It comes out pretty easily. If I had to change one thing, it would be the pocket clip, just to have a little bit more of a ramp to get into the pocket a little bit easier. That's it, man. That's it. That's how much I like this. It's done light cutting tasks very well. It has fidgeted so well. Just sitting here playing with it. The feeling in the hand. How solid this knife feels. How substantial it feels. Without being crazy heavy or anything. All the way around, awesome. So them's my thoughts on the MechaX. What I think is probably the best knife that Ketuo has made, definitely has made this year. Now, I really enjoy the Venter. I should probably grab it real quick so you know what I'm talking about. These are super inexpensive. This is a completely different league than that knife is. But man, I love this knife too. But this is definitely the best knife that they have made for 2024. And might be the best knife they've made in the past 2 years. That's how impressed I am with it. And again, going off of this, it doesn't have to be crazy expensive and fancy ass materials to impress me. I carry and use this knife pretty often. I love it, and I typically do not like G10 knives. But this is inexpensive, but it's a little workhorse. It's a little brute. It's slim, it's fun, it's lightweight. I think the orange is pretty damn sexy. I dig that knife as well. But, that's the puppy right there, man. That might even be in the running for me for best knives of the year from everybody. We'll have to see how this year's selections pan out. Some really impressive shit came out this year. But so far, this is definitely one of my favorites. All right, guys. Thanks for joining me as always, and I'll see you on the next video.